Comedy's been taking a hit. They can go to every movie theater, but when they come into a comedy store, there's some kind of disconnect where they take it personal. I'm gonna talk about everything that goes on the blue planet. And if you didn't try to make some light of it, you'd be crying because it was so sad.
The politicians say some crap on TV, but then that clip gets clipped out and put on social media, and then all the people who don't really think for themselves take that as like as talking points now.
Your parents are and you're an well, I don't like what you're wearing today. You know what that little child did? All you do is feel sorry. It must be terribly morose way to go through life.
Two-part question here. You do like traveling, it sounds like, yeah?
Oh, yes. I've been to quite a number of places, fascinating places.
So in a lot of your podcast interviews or like appearances, I've even heard you on stage say, yesterday at Yucks, this is why you don't do road gigs. But if you like to travel, how come those two you think have never met? Like, how come you don't like to do road gigs as much?
Road gigs are tough because if you don't have a following, and I don't know how much of a following I have, I know it isn't great, then if you have a following and everybody's coming to see you, then it's icing on the cake. They know you, they know what they can expect from you, and you give them yourself in its organic, authentic form. Now, if you go to a club and they don't know you, or then you have to convince them that you have to validate yourself to them, and and a lot of times they won't get you. They're used to setups and punchlines and segues, and comedy's been taking a hit. It's like they want to ruin comedy. It's unbelievable. They can go to every movie theater and see Tarantino movies and all sorts of horror movies and like Chainsaw Massacre. They watch The Walking Dead on cable, where they're hitting people with baseball bats wrapped in barbed wire. And they can see sex, they can see violence, real heavy-duty, nauseating violence, not funny violence. I like Tarantino because his violence makes you laugh because it's so over the top and it takes the sting away. But some people like to see violence. They like to see curse words and sex and just explosions and all sorts of horrific things. And they just sit there and they just watch the movie. They don't throw anything at the screen. They don't complain. They don't demand their money back. They don't get upset. They don't take it personal. They just watch the movie. But when they come into a comedy store or a comedy club, there's some kind of disconnect where they take the comic verbatim. What's the word?
Verbatim.
Verbatim?
Yeah.
And they take it personal. And it just watch it just like you would watch a movie. Just watch it like a movie. Just watch the movie. But they get involved in the movie. They get involved in the movie and they start thinking, he's talking about child trafficking. I'm going to talk about everything that goes on the blue planet. And if you didn't try to make some light of it, or maybe make some fun of it, or make some jokes about it, you'd be crying because it was so sad. And they just don't get it because they've been programmed not to get it. Somewhere along the line, the religious organizations, the colleges, the grade schools, the government, the media, somebody's gotten to these people where they hear a certain word and they're like children. They're just like children.
Can I pause for a second to go back to something we were talking about earlier? This is what I feel like the impact of social media has done. It has taken something like comedy, which used to be kind of more narrow than what it is now, but it has spread it out. And people think comedy is what they see when they're scrolling, the dumb stuff. And then they show up with that mindset and they're not even understanding of what a comedian really is. That's what I truly feel social media is it's almost like muddied the waters. It's devalued what people actually consider to be comedy. In my opinion. And from what I see...
That's a good point, yeah. Didn't Jerry Seinfeld tell us he doesn't want to do colleges anymore?
All the woke stuff, like the woke crowds and stuff that constantly pop up. Where else are they... maybe not getting it from, but these are the platforms that they're at least expressing it on, and that's where the narrative really gets to the masses. The politicians say some crap on TV, but then that clip gets clipped out and put on social media, and then all the people who don't really think for themselves take that and it's like as talking points now, and then they show up to a show of yours and like, this guy's a piece of garbage because he's saying all this shit, but they can't separate themselves.
They don't. They come into the club, and they bring their toxic belief systems with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I went to the park one day because I wanted to do an experiment. That's why we love children so much, because they don't have any racism. They have no conceived conceptions. They have no axes to grind. Mm-hmm. They have nobody's gotten to them yet and influenced them in a negative way. They're open-minded and they're happy about everything. I went to the park and I think there was a 3 or 4, maybe a 5-year-old. And I just said, you know, you're a fat-faced little fuck, you know? Your parents are assholes and you're an asshole and I don't like what you're wearing today. And you know what that little child did?
What did they do?
He clapped his hands and coo and coo. Didn't bother him a bit.
Nothing. No prejudice here. Smiled at you.
I said, you know, you're a fat baby, I told him. I said, you know, I bet you got flat feet, you know? And he was happy. He didn't bother him a bit. The complete opposite of adults going into a comedy club and like they're the boss of child trafficking. They're the boss of handy. You know, people don't laugh at handicapped jokes. Mm-hmm. You don't think people in a wheelchair don't have a sense of humor? They can't walk. That doesn't mean they can't laugh. You know? You're not laughing because you're feeling sorry. I mean, all you do is feel sorry. It must be terribly morose way to go through life, feeling sorry for every bad thing you hear or every word, even in a comedy club.
Yeah. There's no place anymore.
I mean, who would want to live with somebody who didn't get
humor? Basic
comedy humor.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't talk like that. You shouldn't talk like that. Damn, you know. What am I going to talk about? How you lose a sock on a dryer? Is that what you want to hear? How you lose a sock on a dryer?
I adore you, Brian. Honestly, like when I saw you in Texas, I told you this a little bit through messaging, but I can't express to you enough how just eye-opening and resetting seeing you perform was for me specifically. I came back with a renewed understanding of absolutely be unapologetically yourself on stage. Like the audience doesn't know what they want until you deliver something for them. And then they either, you know, accept it or they don't. But after that, it's all good. But if you're going up there and trying to placate and not being your authentic self.
Pander to.
Bingo. Like, you're not really doing anything at that point. Sure, you're amassing an audience and you can make some money, absolutely. But what the fuck are you actually doing? To me. And that's why I'm so indebted to what I got to witness. And it was
Thank you.
This is Black Zeus The Podcast Season 5.